tax forms
as well.
if you don't want to pay
There's
tax,
a lot
you
of
can stick
people
it.
that know.
Yeah.
And I've had FOI requests, just by the way, from
Yes,
the tax
from the
office
tax
where they've said they are at risk based on what they have done in relation to. I've got so many people involved in this thing and a couple of financial institutions as well. And they've admitted they're at risk. But you take that into court, you take an FOI request and a response from the tax office into a court, they don't give a shit.
Well, a court is
It's got no value in
a vessel in the
Well,
right
that's,
dock.
but you have to remember what you said.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any effect until you say on your affidavit in writing that you're a subject of the Queen.
And this is
That's
what
the
we
foundation
did.
of everything, of any claim they're going to make
This
in
is
court.
what we did. And this is because we started.
Yeah.
Because we started with a notice of conditional appearance, we see the moment you admit or you admit to being John Smith, and you leave off those words subject of the Queen, you are a corporation sole and they have jurisdiction.
Yeah. Period.
Period.
Right. But if you had put a submission in even as a subject of the Queen,
oh, that's
you just submitted. I put in written documents. I never write a written submission when they ask me to, because you just submitted. You finished. You know what I'm talking about. So the language is.
If you write an affidavit, you write them as a person, and when it turns up on their desk, it's a corporation that's written that affidavit. You have to write the affidavit as a third-party interest, if you like. So if you form your own identity and you're sending, say, as your surname, you've formed your own identity. So if you put forward an affidavit on behalf of that sending state, which now you're a diplomat of that state, that affidavit has legs and standing. If you write it as a person, it has nothing. And if you write it in incorrect grammar, anybody who's into syntax grammar, that says with little knowledge of it, know that the wording is most important. It's like no parking is an oxymoron, both contradiction of each other. It's not law and it's actually unlawful. No trespass, no rubbish. Everything you read and look from them, and they send it, and they know they're sending out rubbish. And if someone finds you are guilty, who is you?
But the author of this, David Wynne Miller.
Well, he's not the author actually. He took it up later on.
He took it up, but he promoted it. Okay.
He promoted it, yeah.
And he came out here to Australia.
Yes, right.
And he got thrown out.
Why?
Every case
because he wasn't using the status that I've described tonight.
Yeah.
That's why.
Subject of
His syntax sentence structure applies in a republic, the US.
Yeah.
It cannot apply here in Australia because here we have the protection of a subject, a British subject, which means you have an allegiance to Her Majesty because she has taken an oath to uphold.
Yeah, well,
And we're supposed to carry
I
guns.
appreciate that, but our jurisdiction is maritime. Now, I took this up with a few barristers, and they sat down and they said 100%, because most high court judges are very well aware of grammar, and grammar is, a guy in America, a burglar on his second charge of break and enter, took his school teacher to court, and the school teacher says this man has not been charged with anything. The High Court agreed, and the case is thrown out. So grammar is the most important thing in legal communication.
I'm not saying, but you have to
But
use
you
it
never
in
mind,
its
we'll
proper
do it.
But that's
context.
only if you've even, if the court is in order. I mean, if you do what Darryl's saying, then the court can't even come
You're
to
not
order.
even getting to court if
The
you
ships in dry dock.
Yeah.
but grammar and
But
But I'm
syntax,
interested
grammar
to
are
just
two
come
things.
back to what you're saying. So, you work for a company, they take PAYG.
Yeah.
If you issue them, I don't know, what do you do
So we've got an
to?
employment declaration, and we probably do something wrong when we fill that out,
Yeah.
because my son came up with something called, we all know what majority means, right? 21 years of age, although the Australian government made it 18. He found the word major, and the word major means he who has reached the age of majority and is capable of looking after his own affairs.
Sure, yeah.
I nearly fell out of his chair when he was telling me about it. So, and he said maybe that's what we have to write on. Instead of writing Mr. and Mrs., you go down to the bottom and say other and write major, and that might fix everything. Who knows?
Okay.
Just a quick one, Darryl, on the very strict subject you're talking about. You taught me this 4 years ago when I first got into this big Very deep. Well, now, I've been IDing myself as the subject, right? Now, you used certain words there. The person, Kaz, will go to why the word the person, number one, and two, you've also taught me, and that's what I've been doing, I, such and such, am a subject of the Queen Elizabeth II, not a citizen, not citizen of Australia. Now, that's something, do we still continue that? Make it like underlined that we're subject of Queen Elizabeth II, not citizen of Australia.
You can only be
Not citizen of the Queen of Australia.
You can only be a citizen of a republic, hence the citizen of Rome.
Is that still relevant?
Citizens, yeah, it is. You know, a citizen can only exist within a city, okay, either in Greek or Roman status, separate from the Commonwealth. And the Constitution, the Quick and Garran goes into a lot of detail about this. It pulls the citizenship apart. So if, for instance, and this was in 1988, they actually drafted a question that was going to be put to the people, was to insert the word citizen into section 5119 of the Constitution. And section 5119 refers to naturalisation and aliens. They wanted the word citizen to be put after the word aliens. Now, the Constitution forbids the Parliament from doing this, because when you go to the Quick and Garran Act, they go into the detail to say why the word citizen cannot be applied over and above a subject. That there is a clear distinction between citizen and subject. You can't be both. Okay, then you fall under a dual citizenship status if, for instance, you were to stand as a member of Parliament.
And this is why they joined all the councils together and called them cities.
Yeah, now, you know, local governments and all that have all together, but
Do you know where the word alien comes from?
alien, it's a foreign power.
Yeah. Well, you're trespassing.
Yeah, that's a
You're trespassing because you're an alien to the, so they put alien on you.
Yeah.
That's why Trump is on the wall.
So going on from there, it's a natural progression to challenge the jurisdiction, because if they don't recognise you as a citizen, as a subject of the Queen, you challenge their their jurisdiction on the basis that do they have authority?
Well, if they can't answer the question,
yeah,
if they can't answer that question, they've acquiesced.
Yeah.
So you default.
Now, what if they keep going and you challenge them? For example, we tried something recently in that we wanted to go into the witness box and admit into evidence an affidavit which had some of that stuff in there, and they just would not allow us to go into a witness box.
No, what I'm doing is...
How do you challenge that? How do you...
What I'm doing at the moment with some people in Adelaide is we've put notices to the Road Traffic Authority there to show the traceability and that this fine is applicable to a subject. They've been putting this paperwork up to the highest order within their system. This one individual's been ringing them up fairly regularly, because when you don't pay a fine in South Australia, they remove your licence and they stop the ability to re-register the motor vehicle. So it's a bit draconian compared to here, for instance. So she's been constantly ringing up and saying, well, you know, we've passed the date, is it still applicable? Oh no, it's on hold. Your paperwork's going up the ladder. The notice, and now they've been defaulted. right? So we've officially defaulted them, and we've supplied a supporting affidavit, which is signed off by a court exercising summary jurisdiction, the Justice of the Peace. Now, we've put in there may be legal action taken. So now what we're doing, we've drafted a statement of claim and with a supporting affidavit and a summons. So we've summoned because we eventually got a signature and a name. Right, so now we can apply the common law. Okay. And we can apply it to that individual. So now we're empowering our JP to hear that matter, set a date, and that's in the next sort of 3 weeks. Set a date, we've put the offer to them to appear. Okay. So, of course, if they step into that court case, they've accepted the jurisdiction. The best thing they can do is do nothing. But what we're doing is we're seeking a default judgment, ex parte. And then we've put into the paperwork that we're charging them with this list of charges, and we're liquidating the penalties. So we create a debt. And we get it signed off by the court, because all we need to do to the court is declare this. Once the court's heard all of the charges that we've laid out and they call for a defendant, no defendant appears, they hand default judgment over to you immediately, and you've got a court order then, a coram judice order that has power. You see, they can't counter that. They can't even challenge the Justice of the Peace, because the Justice of the Peace just has to turn around and say, well, who are you?
I've got a couple of questions there. What if it isn't a coram judice court? But you're never going to get a lawyer going and make that argument, a law.
Oh, we can, because the Justice of the Peace is in fact historical. It goes back to 1275.
Yeah, but it's a summary jurisdiction, so the High Court still has power over all courts in Australia. Yeah, technically, but then we're putting the question to the High Court. Yeah. Show us your traceability back to section 71 of the Constitution. Because what they did after 1973, they created in 1979 the High Court of Australia Act 1979. Well, guess what? The words out of section 71 don't appear in that legislation.
Fiction.
It's a fiction. So, what, the High Court's already put on notice. This is one of the other reasons, this was one of my applications I did last January in the High Court in London. And they accepted that. They accepted the fact that, yes, Senator Cullerton was still a senator. As far as England's concerned, he is still a senator. But the barrier is the Australia Act. They can say these things, but until such time as we call up the proper defendant in London to dismantle and put London on the presumption, then it won't happen, because all the barristers and solicitors since 1986 have been saying that the Commonwealth's the defendant. It's not. We're now taking the states.
And we were all asleep when this happened. We're responsible, because we were all here in 1986 when Australia became a republic, which is totally not lawful, but there's been 2 witnesses to this.
First witness was in 1984, and that was the referendum question.
Yeah, that's what it started.
The second question, which was interchange of powers. So the states were requesting the Commonwealth to draft a question in order to empower the states with the equal power to that of the Commonwealth.
Well, wasn't that driven from Hawking and all those guys?
That was driven from...
And they just agreed and signed there.
It started
they
in
ignore when they ask it.
If you go to the yes and no arguments for the 1984 referendum, it tells you it was Victoria and New South Wales who headed this meeting called the Constitutional Convention Debates. Basically, it's just a bunch of these guys getting down the club and having a bit of a chinwag about how do we get out of the Constitution. There's nothing granting them power to do this in the, under the laws of Section 51. Under even the state laws, they don't have this power. But Victoria and New South Wales said, well, listen, we want to raise our own revenue. We want to raise our own income tax. We want to bypass Section 91 of the Constitution and just raise our own excise and duties. Is everyone else with us? And they said no.
Yeah.
Now, it took them 10 years to eventually convince the rest of the states to say, all right, we're with you.
Well, the Labour Party were in all the states then, you see. Was
By that time, the Labour Party are the
all in the states, all in the same, and there's
So
no
then
paperwork in.
they then pressured the Commonwealth to draft the question. And the question was put to the people in 1984. That was the first witness. And every single state said no.
That's right, it failed.
It failed. The second witness was in 1999.
Yeah.
When the question was put relating to whether we want to go to a republic or whether we stay with a monarchy. And we overwhelmingly said stay with the monarchy.
And they can't do
There's
it
the
again.
second witness.
Yeah, so we're not a republic.
Oh yes, since
That's
for
right.
33 years we are
You
an
reckon-
unlawful republic.
In
Unlawful.
effect.
Only
In effect.
because you've been accepting it and you
In
haven't
fact,
been
I thought I
able
said that
to
you
ask
accepted
them the
it.
question, hang
Oh,
on,
I do, don't
is
worry.
your republic applicable to a subject of the Queen?
No, it's bullshit, it's fiction.
That's right.
And that's where the Privy Council, if it is a lawful institution, should look at that. A fraud is
That's up to
committed.
them. What they do with this in the United Kingdom is their business. We're just
We're lied to.
we're just transferring the information over and saying, look at it, it's your
Well,
contract.
if Arnott, and everybody know Kevin Arnott. He was Kevin Arnott brought the Pope down in an international court. Ratzinger was his name, he was Pope Benedict. He's charged the other guy as well, and he's been found guilty, but you can't touch the Jesuits. The answer is, these people have got away with it for, say, 33 years, nobody has charged them, and people who commit offences in the government and so on, they know they're getting away with it. They have to be charged individually in the private capacity in an international court, whether it be here in Australia with the flag or in
No,
Europe.
Kevin Arnott has got it wrong.
Oh, so he's
He has created a jurisdiction. Now, if I was being summoned into that jurisdiction, I would immediately go, well, who are you?
Well, the Pope did. He spent millions of dollars. Francis did in the Hague with lawyers from America. He lost. The other guy took nobody there. He thought, oh, above the law, and he was found guilty. And hence, he had to step down because Spain took the case. So a common law court is open to jurisdiction or open to scrutiny by the public. Spain took it up, and they gave the Pope a month to get out, or they were going to take liens against the church. He stepped down. And that's fact.
Again, it's
You couldn't
jurisdiction.
That's
Jurisdiction, jurisdiction, jurisdiction.
The flag creates the jurisdiction. We wanted to turn this place
We
into a
don't have to
Japanese flag. We
recognise
put the flag here on a level playing field. This becomes a Japanese court.
But what authority have you got to put that
Well,
flag
I could appoint you,
into this?
a man with knowledge, and make you the magistrate of the grand jury here, and that's lawful. You then are the magistrate, which just basically, with the knowledge of law, controls what we decide.
But that's not the case. In order to bring about a court that's recognisable in either one of the two jurisdictions that exist on planet Earth, then that judge or magistrate has to have allegiance to the head of power.
Oh.
Okay. So, you know, what's happening at the moment, what's happening at the moment, when you walk into a state court, you're walking into a coroner.
You're walking into a ship with dry dock with 5
No, that's an interpretation.
Well, it's fact.
But they're not going to jump up and say, oh, this is maritime jurisdiction.
Well, we
It's
know
an
it is.
assumption we make.
No, I don't make any assumptions. I know it is.
But,
And it's got 5 levels.
but what does that matter?
It,
You know what the law here in this country tells you to treat that as void.
Well, what about,
It
oh, I
doesn't
know, the
exist.
current constitution, but fact is, now, if everybody sits in a box there, they're all on different levels. The judge is in a box, he cannot hear, he cannot see, the witness box, the jury is split up into 6 levels. So there's no joined, what do you call it, joined up in the thing. So you'd have to put 5 flags in there, which is the red ensign. Those, it's all fiction, and you
But
have
if
to.
I was a defendant in that court, I would just put the question to the court and
Oh, I
say,
agree.
well, have you got jurisdiction over a subject
Well,
of the
Bryan
court?
showed us that. And that's exactly what he does. He fights them on their own territory and draws them into the Constitution.
Well, no,
That's
he's
right.
created his own jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's right. But the flag is what is missing. You try to take a flag into a court.
But that's, I believe it's part of the deception.
So who owns the Queen owns the land? Does
No,
it-
the Vatican owns the bloody land.
Yeah,
No,
well,
well, that's the Vatican, they claim to.
Well, they did. In 1235, the District Corporation London failed to pay payment in marks, and after King John, and then the Vatican said, you haven't paid us the next amount of years since the Magna Carta, then they claimed jurisdiction on Crown land.
Yeah, but they had none. They've been trying to claim jurisdiction,
Oh, yeah.
and there's been a counterclaim, and it's been this tussle, and the door got slammed on the Pope in 1688, and they have not been able to get around that. So the Bill of Rights shut the Holy See out.
Well, the Act of 1666.
The Act of 1666 was done without the quorum that's required in Westminster.
Hence the fire. And the
It's
5th of September
impossible.
of 1666, the fire in London, they did it all behind closed doors.
But again, it comes back to the quorum. The law is very specific. There must be a minimum amount of people within the House to
Oh,
vote.
yeah. Well, that's how the,
Well, that plays into the bad advice
That's what we're
that the
doing. That's why
Queen's
they-
been getting then.
that's why the House of Representatives is absolutely
Presumably.
criminal, because when they pass laws, there's
That was
nobody
a
there.
valid law.
And it's
So-
our fault.
Again, what we're trying to do here is educate people as to what the common law says, specifically to jurisdiction.
Yeah,
And when we see something foreign, whether it be a law passed without proper amount of people in there, or whether those people have taken the oath or not, we ask them the question. We place
Yeah.
the presumption onto them, and that puts them to requires them to supply evidence. And when they cannot supply that evidence, then they have no claim or
Correct.
jurisdiction.
100%.
You have the upper hand.
Yep.
And the upper hand has been granted to us
Yep.
through Her Majesty and through the coronation oath and the hundreds of years of laws that have been established through trial and error. Many times the king has tried to step onto your land and take possession, and the law has prevented him. Each time there are classic cases that go right back, and you'll find that all of the minions, the lawyers, the barristers, the sheriffs, they've all been created from that one system, from that one head of power, because of that oath, to the lion with the crown on its head, which is the representation of Yah, of Yahuwah.
God's law, yeah.
Yeah. So this is where we're stemming this.
It's the Queen's law, and the Queen or any member of the royal family cannot be charged with any offence.
So we have to really be very careful when it comes to other information coming in. It's very easy to be distracted. And we can see the goodness that other people are trying to do, but believe me,
One
they're
God,
false prophets.
one God.
They are
The
And
Queen,
our
the Queen
property
could be
rights are at
brought to
risk
trial,
at
but
the
she would
moment.
have to be tried by her peers, and there aren't
She has
peers
no
to the
fear.
Queen.
She cannot be
And
charged.
therefore
The
she
Queen's
can't be
law.
charged.
That's why her, whoever, if she's been exposed, like we are doing now, she won't suffer. It'll be those that have given her poor advice. They'll be the ones who'll be
that's
thrown
right,
under the
that's
bus.
right, that's right.
And they're getting very nervous at the moment here in Australia and in the United Kingdom.
So, if you ask them the question whether they have jurisdiction over a subject of the Queen, and they cannot provide you with that trail of evidence, then they lose jurisdiction. How do you then terminate the case? What's next?
Well, you default.
you tell them that they're
Well,
involved.
you formally default them through the paper trail. Have a look at an infringement notice. When you get a speeding fine, it shows you very clearly on the back the three-step process they take. Okay, they first make you the first offer, and they give you so much time to fulfil that offer. You fail to do that, then you get a reminder notice. You fail to fulfil the reminder notice, so this is all in contract law as well. Then they bring down the hammer, and then they go, well, you've accepted, you haven't challenged, so therefore you're now liable for the debt they've created. Mm-hmm. We're doing the same thing back to them.
But in court, you move a motion to dismiss, don't you? You just
But you're not
jump
in
on
court.
it and you move a motion. No, but
I'm
he's saying if
assuming that,
you're
but
in
I'm
there.
of course.
There's
If
a
you're in
fine
there,
for
move a motion to dismiss.
In the court,
Can
in front
challenge
of
the jurisdiction.
with the prosecutor in front of the...
So when you're in the courtroom,
Yeah.
your focus is on whoever it is that's brought you to court.
Okay, so it's...
So you ask two questions.
Not the judge, the prosecution.
The prosecution. You ask two questions of the prosecution. Right? Subject matter jurisdiction, applicable to a subject of the Queen. So what you just said to them, can you please show that the legislation you've brought me into this court is applicable to a subject of the Queen?
Yeah.
First question. Second question. Has the plaintiff brought the subject matter jurisdiction into a court that has authority over a subject of the Queen?
How do we define a
Sit
subject
down.
of the Queen? Do we just make that claim, or is
No,
it
you
from
put
your
them
birth
on the,
certificate if
you're
born
placing
here?
the presumption onto the plaintiff,
Yeah.
the prosecution. They have to answer two questions. Is the legislation applicable to a subject of the Queen? Is the court they've brought me into, does that court have authority over a subject of the Queen? So is it a coram juris court or is it a coram non juris court?
Pretty simple.
Very simple, isn't it? Two questions, sit down, wait,
To the prosecutor, to the
to
plaintiff.
the prosecutor.
Yeah, not the judge.
Now, what may happen in the lower courts, the magistrate will step up and say, well, hang on, of course, they'll start batting for the plaintiff. So then you turn around to the court and you then place the presumption onto the court and say, can the court please provide its subject matter jurisdiction applicable to a subject of the Queen, and can the court please provide its authority traceable back to the Constitution? So what you've done, you've put the magistrate on notice to show that they have taken an oath to Her Majesty, and that oath is applicable if it's not the one that's prescribed, that the oath that they have taken is applicable to a subject of the Queen.
But my point before was, what if it was, say, someone that came from another country that is here in Australia, maybe just a resident,
But if they're a resident, they're a subject.
they are?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
No,
That's what I wanted to know.
All you have to do is claim the status. That's
Okay.
it.
That's it, make a claim of the status.
That's it.
Okay.
I understand the logical steps and I praise you for all that. But the practical things, if you do that, sometimes the magistrate will say to you, we don't bother this nonsense, so you're guilty anyway and you pay the fine.
Well, what we did...
That happens. It just goes
what
over
we did
you.
just prior to Christmas,
Yeah.
there was a gentleman here on occasion, and he went into the magistrate's court after the police were after they were seeking arrest warrants granted 4 years prior. They were actually up to the point where the 5th year, we were in a couple of days of 5 years, and under their own statute, it's void. So he went into this court and he went in saying, I'm the person, I'm not the person, I'm the man, I'm the living man. He lasted less than 1 minute in the court.
Bullshit.
And the magistrate turned around and said, I'm now counselling, not suspending, I'm counselling the driver's licence for a period of 2 years. And went straight on to the next case. because he was beside himself. So he then rang me and said, what do I do? And I said, well, go straight to the registrar and have the matter set aside. It's lawyer talk. You have it set aside. Push it aside. Thank you. I'm not accepting that judgment. I need to be put back in front of that magistrate or another magistrate. The registrar said, no, all you can do is appeal. Now, he filled out the appeal form. He rang me back and he said what he'd done. And I said, no, go straight back to the registrar and say you want it set aside. He said, oh no, that's not applicable in this court. And then he had me on the phone. I spoke to the registrar and said, will you show me why a lawyer is able to do this and yet a subject cannot do this? Oh, well, in that case, we'll put you back in front of the magistrate. So within a couple of hours, we were back in front of the magistrate, and the magistrate said, well, who are you? And he said, well, I'm John Smith, a subject of the Queen. And immediately the magistrate said, oh, you're in Commonwealth jurisdiction. What are you here for? I want the licence cancellation lifted. Consider it done. Consider it done. He walked out, he rang me, and he just said, wow, I can actually drive over to your place legally. It works. It works. So you've got to stick to your guns. Those words mean absolute gold. You've just got to get your head around the whole application of how we apply those words to those who are trying to exercise authority over us. It's very simple. The power of presumption, because they are operating in foreign jurisdiction, they will do whatever it takes to justify that within this common law land. And this has been, you look at this historically back to Magna Carta, and this is what's been taking place. There's been this to and fro fight. Status. You know, try and take the people away from the protection of Her Majesty or the monarchy or the crown. Take them away from it, no matter how you do it. They've had the best minds in the world trying to work on this to bluff us into this status. And it's working. It really is working. It's so simple. You know, it really is so simple. It doesn't matter what the system does, whether it's local government, whether it's state government, whether it's federal government, whether there's threatening bankruptcy, taxation, no matter what it is, to the police officer on the side of the road. Can you please show us how this is applicable to a subject of the Queen? Because that's what I'm claiming.
Oh, okay.
There's your protection.
Because all of these authorities now have an ABN and they operate.
And does the Constitution grant them that power to create that ABN?
No.
Fiction.
Absolute fiction. I urge you to look back in the referendum history. Go to 1913 and 1921. And the questions that were being put to the Australian people in 1913 was directly relating to corporations.
Would that be the Labour Party again?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't
It
them.
may have been, but
The
the thing is, the people said no.
40 referendums failed.
So they've very clearly said twice, 1913, the same question was put in 1921. Can you allow us to nationalise corporations, which means we can have a broader scope, we have broader powers relating to corporations? And the people said no. Two witnesses, again, the two witnesses appeared and said no, go away with your application. And a second question in the same body of questions in both of those years, will you allow us to nationalise monopolies? So this is how they were going to get over charging us and bringing in licences and registration. Okay, they could foresee all of this. What we're going through today, they've been trying to establish for 100 years. And we've been saying no, because we've had this unique power that no other Commonwealth country has had that power to do. And that is to ask the people and the will of the people. This is why this constitution is so very important.
Very important, and we need to get the word out.
The voice of this constitution has to come from every one of us. Every one of us.
The younger ones need to be taught it. They took it deliberately.
They don't teach it in schools.
Now they're talking about lowering the voting age for council elections to 16. So that's to me, my response to that was I'm more than happy to express my will in favour of lowering the age, as long as the constitutional law becomes mandatory in every high school in this country. So that if they, by the time they've reached 16, they've had an introduction to the law of the land, and they can walk to that voting booth with a certain amount of maturity relating to the questions that may be put to them. And I think that's very important. We keep falling back to that constitution and saying to those that are trying to express an authority in one form or another, where is that granted? Where is that power granted?
Learning from history, Darryl, what really set me on my backside listening to the podcast the other night was the way the Australian politicians foxed the British. I find it incredulous that they'd had a referendum before they asked, before the states went with the question to Britain. I'm wondering if there was a quid pro quo between Heath and Whitlam, because Heath wanted something and Whitlam wanted something, so maybe they both agreed to look the other way.
Well, that was in the late 1960s, the dialogue between Heath and Whitlam. The dialogue when the Australia Act was applied to England was headed by Thatcher. Thatcher was the cretin. Right. It was her, it was the Tories, it wasn't the Labor Party. The Conservatives allowed that act to go through.
Fraser,
but Whitlam kicked it
Well,
off.
Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister.
Yeah, Fraser.
Fraser
But
was
Whitlam
involved.
kicked it off.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that the consolidation of what Whitlam started?
Well, it was. I think there's a lot more behind the Whitlam years than what has come out. We've got some information, but what actually led to the removal of the Governor General, I would say would be more along the lines of what we're discovering now.
They won't release the letters. There's quite a lot of letters between Cara and the Queen, and she actually was worried about him getting sacked first, so she said she would delay it, and then Cara sacked Whitlam and saved his own butt, and it backfired on Whitlam, of course, and Fraser was involved in with Albright, the Act of 1986.
They've all been put under this Royal Styles and Titles Act. So that's the real problem. They were bluffed into believing that Queen of Australia was valid.
But Whitlam got his republic and Heath got his EU. So I think there was a deal with the devil between them somehow.
Without a doubt. But
Thatcher got sacked because she wouldn't go on with it.
the United Kingdom has been under Unidroit since 1947.
It goes back to Yakla. The whole thing was back to Yakla in Russia.
Well, the tension between the Catholics and the Protestant. England's been a long time.
In the 20th century, a lot of people are hanging their hat off the League of Nations. The League of Nations was the first attempt at Unidroit. The League of Nations, the Pope was actually behind the creation of the League of Nations.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. Where's the evidence though for that?
That's actually in the Hansard with Billy Hughes. And after 1919 through to 1926, there was actually a documentary done on this a number of years ago, exposing the real Billy Hughes as Prime Minister.
That would be really good to see.
Very interesting.
I speak to a lot of people. Many of them actually are very smart engineers and technicians, and so on, and some people in finance. And I've got this funny feeling that the amount of people who know about these things is so small.
That's the problem.
You got people, this country has got such a wonderful brainwashing system. It makes the populists in Russia amateurs compared to what we have here. Now, and that's what they rely on. We come from nothing. People who think like us, we are just such a tiny minority. The day I spoke with, just a few days ago, I spoke with a young guy, very bright guy, and he tried to offer us a telephone system and so on. So you're switched on, technically and so on. He had no idea what's happening at all. Nothing. Now, my daughters, who are highly educated, one of them has got a successful business, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to know. He have complete, absolutely no interest whatsoever. Now, how are you going to do it?
Yes.
There are a lot of
This
groups.
is
No, you'd
this
be
is nothing.
surprised.
We're
You'd
talking.
be surprised.
Yes. But you gotta look,
Now it's zero.
but you got to look back at yourself.
It is zero.
Yeah, when you go back to our time in 1986, we were around when all this happened, and if anybody tried to tell us what was happening then, what would we have done?
Yeah, you were here.
And it
I
really piss off,
I think-
and we're the same. Now you see, you spend the first 20 years of your life going to school, sex, and the next 30 years paying for your mistakes, and then you wake up at 50, 60 years old, you say, I've been screwed for the last 60 fucking years. Now I'm going to do something about it.
Well, hang on. I came in 69. I was fully grown and educated, and I've seen the first Whitlam election and so on. I tried to warn people,
With all this.
and it was just like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah, it's
I escaped from that, now we've got it here. Now, this freedom which we now enjoy in this country, it's comparable or worse than it's when I left Czechoslovakia in 1960.
Yeah.
And many people believe in 9/11.
And they will not believe you. They think I'm lunatic. You know, because how can something be wrong in Australia? You
It depends the circles you
no,
move
no, no, no.
in.
You are living in a dream.
Yeah.
You wake up.
There's a big
You're
wake-up
living in a
time.
dream.
Oh, yeah, it's happening.
There's a big wake up
You'd
time.
be surprised how
I'm
many
not surprised.
claws are digging
Yeah,
into the
but-
system,
yeah.
honestly. You
Yeah.
don't see it, but the circles
Yes.
I move
It's
into.
gonna happen.
Yes, we do.
You are
And with
doing that.
social media, it's had a big
Yeah, sure.
uplift
You also
as
got
well.
to
The young
remember
people-
too that it
young-
only takes a minority to
Carol.
make the move.
Well,
Doesn't
they
need a
can't
lot
have
of
another
it, just a
Carol.
minority.
It takes, you know what it takes to change the regime?
Republic, that's
Either
three
false
laws, isn't it?
or economic
They
collapse.
can't have another referendum related to that.
How Russia fell
Who
apart.
would be drafting the referendum?
You can
Yeah,
do
but
whatever you like.
I want to see the
Trust me, you're still sitting here and you're 8 years of age talking about it.
Too many voices.
Yeah, no.
Too many voices.
First of all, call the field, you're the chairman.
History will tell you. History will tell
Okay,
you.
come, one.
Okay, now, the constitution has been changed through a referendum. Okay, and it was changed illegally because it was after 1973. Right, and that was section 15. So,
Are you talking about gay marriage?
no, there's no
What are you,
referendum.
Oh, the postal vote was
what
very
are you talking
successful.
about they've changed in the constitution?
No, it takes nothing.
The prick's got to be charged, mate.
The change was to section 15. So that was the first time the words political party entered into the constitution. And that was not what the question was focused around. So this is one of the referendums that will be undone, essentially.
What year was that?
And this was one of the referendums, when they changed section 15, this allowed the High Court to install another senator in place of Cullerton.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Oh,
it's-
can you expand on all of that?
But
Because
it's
that's
not a
very
law,
confusing.
the court with no appeal, it's
I'm
not a
not
law.
aware of that.
yeah, casual vacancy can only exist with the approval of the House through section 47. And that was never fulfilled. Now, today, if a senator or a member of the House of Representatives was found to have been maybe in breach of section 44 and disqualified, the House is now sitting and determining whether that disqualification should be travelled through. They're not being thrown into the High Court.
That's, the High Court, that's,
So that's a rectification that you've achieved.
They've
is that
rectified
right?
it, and they've only rectified it because of the paperwork that we've been
Good.
sending them
Yeah, well done.
through Carlton
Yeah.
relating to his ruling.
That is really good. Yeah.
So they're now waking up and they're going, oh dear. I guess the best thing we can do is just try to keep it quiet.
yeah.
And we'll put a quick article out there and oh gee, no one noticed. Good.
And Brandis is still hiding out?
Oh,
in
Brandis
England?
is still in London.
Yeah,
But
Trade Commission,
little
Why-
coward,
why
job
did
for
they-
the boys.
little
Why did they get
coward.
rid of him? Explain to us, why did you...
because Bryan Shaw helped a solicitor in Queensland by the name of Ian Bell, also known in the legal profession as Ding Dong Bell.
Oh, I've heard of that, yeah.
He was hopeless as a solicitor. Bryan Shaw helped put together writs applicable to the Court of Disputed Returns with anybody who was standing for the federal parliament in Western Australia. And Cullerton was one of those. And yet, we were challenging the very standing of the system in the parliament, but that didn't matter to him.
Yeah, Bryan
He
was,
still
he was wrong.
put an application, and then the Attorney General Brandis saw that application sitting in the court and then raised it in front of Parliament and said, I believe we have to put Senator Cullerton into the Court of Disputed Returns for being in breach of the Constitution, Section 44. And essentially that was the start. That was the foothold that Brandis and Hanson needed to get the ball rolling, to get Cullerton out. Now, Justice French, Chief Justice French, who was the head of the High Court, he had announced just a month prior he was going to retire in March 2017. Then Cullerton's case landed on his desk and he started to panic and he left.
I was going to say he should have
Because
done
he
better.
saw that the application was faulty. And this was pressure that was being put on the High Court through Brandis as the Attorney General. And he left. He just announced, I'm out the door, see you later, have a lovely day. And then Keifel, Chief Justice Keifel, was appointed very quickly, and they were ready to throw Cullerton out on the 7th of December. And we managed on the 1st of December to bring a motion in the House called Motion 163, which stopped the referral to the court. And the House overwhelmingly voted in our favour, 37 to 24, 25.
So what happened?
Darryl.
And then the court, then the Parliament disassembled for Christmas, and the motion was put that the company would be put first cab off the rank on the 4th of February 2017. And then the High Court, sitting as the Court of Disputed Returns on the 7th of December, decided to strike out of Cullerton's affidavit the portions relating to the parliamentary vote in Motion 163. And she said, I'm going ahead with the trial. Now, that's up on the High Court website, the actual film of that decision. And you can see the other 4 justices, their chairs were turned. And they were actually looking to get out of that room. And Keifel was the only one, front and centre, making the statement.
That'd be right, that's a dummy.
So she was then reminded of this, because there's court precedence. There's, it's called stream rising above source.
Yeah.
The Court of Disputed Returns cannot override the will of the Parliament.
Fiction.
Exactly, what is it?
Well, the highest court in the land is the Senate.
That's right. The
So
Senate.
it should never have left the Senate. The decision should have been made in the
That's
Senate.
right. But
Well,
Section
good,
15
Darryl.
kicked in, and on the 3rd of February, the day before Parliament was to reassemble. The High Court installed Senator Peter Georgia, who was the number 2 on the ticket to Culleton,
So he's still
and he was put in place. And immediately the 5 grubs within the Liberal Party then said, once they'd sworn in Giorgio, he was booked to fly back Qantas to Perth, and they said, no, we'll fly you back on the Royal Air Force plane. And he changed. He got back to Perth, and he actually put a complaint into the Federal Police to stop Culleton from coming anywhere near him. And he also promoted to Culleton's family that he'd gone insane and to take no notice of him. Now this affected Culleton's wife. Right, this was her family.
Yeah.
So she was then separated from her family.
When can we arrest them?
Can I ask a question though before that? Hadn't Rod already fingered the fact that there was a fake High Court?
No, he had fingered the fact that the Queen had been removed from the High Court rules.
That's right, yeah.
And this was what all he was doing. He was voicing what I had successfully sued the Commonwealth over in 2007.
But does that not make it a fake High Court?
It's not a matter of whether it makes or not. You're looking for the argument.
No, but that's just my understanding. That's how I view it.
That's
Was it a
irrelevant.
fake High Court?
We'd raised the maiden question. His maiden question was to do with the Queen and the High Court. His maiden speech was to do with the banks and the misbehaviour of the banks. So behind all of this is the ANZ Bank.
Yeah, but could you have a fake High Court carrying a grudge? Like if the fake High Court's
On
going
the
to sit
evidence,
on
you
this
can
matter...
make that supposition,
Yeah.
but we have no evidence to back that up.
So what's happening with Culleton now?
Yeah, I was going to
Well,
say.
So Culleton at the moment
is...
he's got many irons going in the fire.
Can you tell us what some of them are?
I'm sorry, will he be reinstated?
Well, is this what you...
That's a crystal
Someone
ball.
you're in the position.
At the moment, he's got a prosecution going
Yes.
against people encroaching on his patent. Right?
Yeah,
There's a Victorian group who have been breaching the patent on his grain kegs. It's worth multi-millions of dollars, and we're about to liquidate this massive company.
Good.
Culleton invented basically the Coca-Cola of the equine industry, and there are a lot of people around Australia who are extremely jealous of that product. It is worth billions of dollars, this product,
So-
and they have done whatever they can to undermine him.
What is it?
It's called a grain keg, and it's a plastic cubicle which puts, it's basically delivered to the farm directly from the supplier, so from the farm to farm, essentially. Cuts out all the middlemen. And it's specific, so for thoroughbreds, you just, as the horse owner, you go up with your bucket to this keg, just turn the knob, it'll put a desired amount of grain, already pre-mixed, exactly to the recipe, and taken straight to the horse. There's no mess. It is clean. Once the keg's finished, then another one's delivered and put in its place. It's worth, on average, about $6,500 per keg per week.
I suppose
Per keg per week.
And the recipe is specific to each horse, is it?
And the recipe can be made specific to each horse, and it's part of the patent is how that recipe is made up and how the keg is able to deliver from top to bottom a consistent quality product with the right amount of molasses, the right amount of grain, and it's all to the letter.
Now, can I ask a question regarding that? If How on earth did they get, not get, but how on earth did, it was his patent, how on earth did they manage to get
As
away?
soon as they saw that the system was jumping on them, they then took advantage of his vulnerability, because it first started with the ANZ Bank attacking him, and they were also after that
That's
patent.
that's a patent though.
Yeah, they were after that intellectual property.
But they can't take it just because they
They
want it.
can. They've been taking these intellectual properties from people for decades, Trace. They
What makes,
have.
what makes that legal?
It's
Forget the
not.
word legal, that's
It's
the
not
construction
legal.
of the word
Yeah,
legal,
you're
right?
true.
It is way outside, and unfortunately we haven't had the court system with the proper language to go in and say, well, listen, the subject of the Queen has been affected. No, we fall into the trap of the legal profession, and they bring the corporate soul into the court. And of course you're then vulnerable
You're
under
under the
the
so-called
rules and
jurisdiction.
regulations. But
Yeah.
now we've got a lot more knowledge around this. But ANZ Bank were really one of the perpetrators to trying to get that intellectual property. Another one was an ex-board member of Wesfarmers. His name's Dick Lester, Richard Lester. And he was the one that eventually was able to apply a bankruptcy claim against Cullerton that worked in the federal court. But when you look at that, and bankruptcy solicitors around Australia have looked at that case and they've gone, this is bizarre. This case, it stands out like a sore thumb. No one else would have been made insolvent. The court clearly misbehaved. And we've had people come to us saying, we need this fixed. Because at the moment, it's a virus sitting amongst this whole system. Even their corrupt system, it cannot stand in this system. That ruling was so ultra-virus. So, we've been caught between legal opinion and legal application, and whether we defend and prosecute ourselves. Like, it's been the past 3 years, we could write volumes of books about what we've gone through and what we're still going through. We're in the midst of this still at the moment. And there is so much. And Dick Lester, we've actually got a recording where Cullerton was lucky enough to have the phone on record, and he recorded the conversation, and Lester said, with his son, I want the intellectual property to that key, and I want to hand it over to my son. He has spent, now the court granted him...
He's very arrogant.
The court granted him a $200,000 costs claim against Cullerton. $205,000. Now, Lester, and this is on the record, he has spent over $2 million pursuing that $200,000 debt.
That'd be right.
Really, yeah. Doesn't make any
It's just
sense.
big out money anyway.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
Better spend it here.
It's still real.
West Farm.
It's still real.
Oh,
That's how
They're
they.
behind
That's how I
bars.
know that for
No.
fact.
Scumming.
This happens all over
Yeah.
the world. You outspend the other guy.
Is
That's
he
all it is.
Yeah.
But their
Yeah.
focus was that grain kick.
There's a guy on the Gold Coast. He went up against the NBN because they wanted to put a mobile tower by his property, and he got all doctor's letters, all the certification, and got that barred. They then took that to court, and it's the first time that an assault charge has been challenged in court,
Yeah.
and he lost.
Yeah.
And the NBN were awarded $137,000 of costs. Yeah.
So this is the
But-
5G.
But it is, because it's Ray Broomhall who's the barrister on that, who's leading the charge for the whole push against 5G and Telstra and the whole
Are you
thing.
guys all aware of Jerry Donoghue? Jerry Donoghue was fined $145 for not voting and $5,000 costs in Montague. So Jerry, on the last case, arrested the magistrate. The magistrate stood down and threw the case out, so he hasn't, he's sort of gone.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Darryl, are you continuing with the jurisdiction presentation?
Well, we're about winding up.
Yeah.
We've-
Thank you.
So are we all happy with what jurisdiction it should be in?
Yeah, I thank you for the Queen Elizabeth II because I must admit I was right in the second, so that's been a very good lesson for me.
Good pickup.
Very happy with that.
Yeah. Which point?
Yeah.
You could have told me what.
Folks,
I didn't know what you were saying.
folks,
You didn't ask.
I'm pretty good at listening, and I've been listening to Darryl from when he first started talking. So what I'm putting together into my head is that there's got to be an action plan that if people like us don't support, a lot of what Darryl said tonight will just not be passed through the correct process to get out to the number of people that it needs to. So what I'm asking you individually to think about, I've got an IT guy, extremely bright bloke, looking for work. And I'm about to offer him a contract of taking on people's, I'm not going to use the word cases, I'm going to say educational experiences.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask, his name's Roshan, about 45 or something, but just like took on Department of Human Affairs and won the case. And when the barristers of Human Affairs went, well, how did you find this all out? He didn't tell them, but he told me. He just did a word search through the entire legislation to, like has been done here. And if I tossed Roshan onto what you're saying, he would do word searches through and find the phrases, the words, the whatever, to put into the documents. And I'm vaguely IT, but just seeing how this guy did it, I went, oh, okay. I want to use him, and I'll fund it myself if I have to, but I would love to see you all get behind the push that George initially has made to set up this law forum by giving it practicality. And we've talked about Monday nights, and George has suddenly said, look, Monday nights could be free to do this, that we have some sort of interactive Zoom type seminar facility here. So if you can't be here in person, you're at the other end of the computer screen. And you dump into the mix via, however you do it, the IT people can figure this out, the educational issue, and we come up with some sort of templated response that could then be adapted to somebody else's educational issue. So what I'm getting at is that this is the third time I've heard Darryl speak, and I understand you've got a history that goes back to Frankston and CLRA and etc., but the value of what you're putting out, I believe, has got to be put into a credible action plan. So that's what I'm asking you all to go away and think about.
Yeah, we're sort of doing this through, this is the basic platform for the Great Australian Party.
Okay.
And this is why we're urging people to look at the policies on that party. We've had many people look at that and just go, wow, you are so different to anything we've ever seen in history of politics. And we really want to bring people to gap to say, okay, we're sick of this party system, but unfortunately it's part of our life. So let's take advantage of it and apply our value and whatever we can contribute to it, be it energy or whatever, to promote GAP. And we're encouraging as many people as possible to stand in the next election.
That's what I was going to raise though, that if you've got a problem and I've identified the party system as one of the big problems, how do you find a solution with the problem?
Because, and if you've, you know, I've been rabbiting on about this stuff for 20 years. One of the first things I started promoting was Arthur Cresby's as a parliamentarian. And he cited in the Constitution that the party system was not recognised, and yet this is what basically has been governing the country.
Right.
And he said, and he wrote a little book just on this very subject, and he said, in order to beat the system, you've got to join them.
Yeah.
But you've got to maintain that allegiance to the Constitution and keep that pressure up. Unfortunately, the only people that have been doing that in the history of Australia, as young as it is, are independents.
Yeah.
Because they go, no, we can't, we just can't join that party system. So therein lies the problem. So we've gone, well, okay, we need to just form a band of those
independent
people
within a party.
and written into our policy is that individual's independence. Okay, we're granting them their independence, but as long as they maintain their allegiance to the Constitution.
That's fair enough.
That's all we're doing. We're just standing by what the law says.
That was a very good move.
So, and we've got people who have been trained in the media, who have spent decades in the media, and they are now approaching us and saying, when you have people who are prepared to stand at an election, they will train you. They will train you on what to say when the camera's pointing at you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's great.
And what we do, it's very simple. They will try and raise something about, oh, we've got... Can you comment on this photograph of you strangling a duck? Can you... Well, as far as the Constitution's concerned, so you don't
Step out
bite.
Yeah.
You don't bite the bait that they just dangled in front of you. You go back to what you're originally there for. Well, as far as this party is concerned, an adherence to the Constitution in whatever we do, which may mean a revamping of the income tax system, or it may mean, we'll finally get a chance to put the banks in line. You know, this sort of mantra is what we do.
That's good, I like it.
And these people are bringing this knowledge with experience, because they know this is how they bring people down, that the system are uncomfortable.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned very early, Darryl, is that you don't do it with sticks and stones. You do it with questions, because this is a comedy of errors. If you take it too seriously, I mean, fortunately, we're not in a situation where we get attacked by guns and swords and all that sort of thing, provided we don't push the line too far. And so, to me, it's got to be done with compassion, because these people are buffoons or muppets, if you want to call them, and they think they know what they're doing, but really they don't know what they're doing, and maybe we've just got to break it to them gently.
Oh yeah.
Well, you can educate them as to the meaning of it.
Sorry, what was that? I had a dozen replies.
The alkaline shit or the acid shit? Which is it?
Darryl, did you stand up?
You charge them and you take it to court.
Now, how did you go? We voted for you, but I think
Yeah, GAP got 34,000 votes, but the Australian Electoral Commission were empowering their supervisors to take the how to vote cards off the voters. So they were actually hovering behind the people as they came up to have their name ticked off, and if they saw a GAP how to vote card, they would lean over and take it off.
They must be desperate to actually do that, because you weren't there for very long. So there must be a real big issue with you guys.
Starling says it's not the votes, it's the people who count them that matter.
That's right, and this is why a push now will be towards getting people on board to stand in Parliament. So Carlton, as soon as we get through this court debacle we're going through at the moment, which hopefully won't be too much longer, we will then get on the road to basically really promote GAP, and we're looking for people to stand as... The more people that stand, then the more exposure we have, which the system can't avoid.
Yeah.
Because if we get everyone in every seat, if we can get one individual in every seat around Australia, then we're front and centre.
Darryl, in your...
How do you get the training though to deal with the horrible machinations?
It's something that we are, the policies will help first. People need to read the policies, get their head around where we're at, and either say yes or no.
What about the Jesuits?
What about
like they're the lethal force.
Then we're not in, one of the things that we will not be run by, and that is fear.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you fall victim to fear, then why are we even bothering?
Exactly.
We should turn that victim of fear back to people who think they own their own homes. As you know, they don't even get paperwork at the end of the mortgage now anymore, that's finished. So you don't own your own home. The council are selling houses out from under people who have only been behind with the rates for 3 months, or if you're in negotiation or dispute with them, they'll still put it up for sale. And that's a tactic which you might get them to listen to if you say, if you don't do something, you're going to lose your own home. So it's like religion, hell or heaven. And that's, I think that worries people, I think.
That does, but we've got, what we're doing in England at the moment is undo all of it.
I love it.
Yeah.
There's a court
Everything
case,
falls away.
there's a court case that's recently defeated what he's just said, because the councils, they have no authority.
No.
Can't bring us back to that. And
The
the other
other
thing,
is a government.
the other thing is apparently even the CEO has to be elected, properly elected.
You charge the CEOs.
They're only appointed.
Actually, with respect to the council,
Councils believe their own bullshit.
Yeah.
They're actually convinced they are.
Well, I mean, the Local Government Act is illegal.
Well, I went straight to the head of the line and charged them, and he backed down.
Yeah.
But you got to put the letter, the knowledge of the church. What are you looking at?